alcohol is in the solo cup of jungle juice. They don't know how many ounces a solo cup is or how many drinks or shots they put into their drink. And it's really not being aware of how much you're drinking, what a standard drink is, and how blood alcohol content affects you. So I think being knowledgeable about those things is a number one way that students can protect themselves.
You can also make sure that you've had something to eat before you go out to drink. I know sometimes women in particular will try not to eat because they know they're going to take calories in terms of, in the form of alcohol, and that's a really terrible strategy. It's very dangerous. It's sort of a setup because when your stomach is empty, the alcohol goes even more quickly into your bloodstream. And also, what Liz said about tracking how much you're drinking, it's not just the number of drinks, the amount you drink, but also the amount of time, so that your body can metabolize about 1 standard drink per hour. And if you are cognizant of how much time is going by, that also is a very important part of the strategy for not overdoing it.
And so, and along those lines as well, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Liz, but sort of deciding how much you're going to drink before you go out.
Absolutely.
Is an important thing, rather than sort of, going out without something in mind and as you said, losing track along the way of how much you drank. We're not, we meaning me as the Director of Student Health Services and the Alcohol Task Force, are not advocating that students necessarily not drink with recognition of the 21 law in Massachusetts, but that people, if they decide to do so, do these sorts of things to protect themselves from harm. So we're not, trying to crack down for the sake of cracking down on alcohol, but really, because we sit in a meeting once a week where we talk about incidents that have happened on campus, and we had over 200 students who were transported to the emergency department last year because of alcohol intoxication. And too many, I'm sure, unreported sexual assaults or unintended sexual activity that happen because people have not been careful about their alcohol use, or perpetrators use alcohol as a way of putting people into, difficult situations. So, that's really our concern, is trying to protect students from those things, helping students to recognize that they need to protect themselves from those kinds of situations.
And I think another big piece of it too is if you're worried about someone, not being afraid to ask for help. So if you're in the dorms, letting an RA know. If you're off campus, or even if you are in the dorms, call BUPD or 911, 911 if you're off campus. And really being aware that alcohol can be lethal, and that when you can't arouse someone, when someone has irregular breathing, when someone, if they don't react to a pinch, and you really, those are signs that you need immediate medical attention for someone, and really being aware of, if you're at all concerned, there's a reason you're concerned, and you should ask for help. So I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that, it's a community of people, it's a community, and everybody needs to look out for each other and be aware of what's going on.
Another question we received is got another one at the bottom here. I'll get to that one. We'll go to, my friend can drink quite a bit a night, and if I try to do the same thing, my reaction is not the same. What determines how people react to the same amount of alcohol?
I think things like, obviously the basics like sex and gender. Women have more fat in their body, and they have different water content, so they're not going to be able to handle as much alcohol as their counterpart at the same weight of a male. In addition to that, people have different alcohol dehydrogenase, which is the enzyme that breaks down alcohol in your body. So that also is kind of a genetic component that affects how your body will metabolize alcohol as well. So, those things on top of food and
in addition to the gender and size and everything, isn't there also a difference in terms of how much familiarity a person has had with alcohol in the past, how much tolerance they have to it?
Yeah, the dangerous thing about tolerance is that the blood alcohol level is still rising, so even though you're not feeling the same effects, or it takes more for you to feel the same effects, and it looks like you can handle your liquor, your blood alcohol level is still peaking, so you're just as much at risk for alcohol poisoning. or your body's
So
shutting
just
down.
to underscore what you said a moment ago about alcohol poisoning, I know on campus there's a lot of concern about what would happen, given that a lot of students are under 21. People are worried about what would happen to them if they turned in someone, if they alerted the authorities that someone was unresponsive. And what you said a minute ago about how important it is to be in touch and to make sure that if you're worried about somebody, you do call for help. That's, we've all seen tragedies. We've all learned of tragedies. There are thousands of college students nationwide who die annually, every year, from alcohol poisoning. Alcohol is a poison in the brain. And it's just so important that if you're worried about someone who's not responsive, you don't leave that person alone for an instant and you get help.
Another question that came in is a comment. What would you say to a friend who's telling me to drink more?
I think that peer pressure and that type of situation happens a lot, and I think that in general, people always want company with whatever they're doing. So if someone's drinking a lot, they want their friend to go along with them because they think it's going to be fun. And initially, at lower blood alcohol levels, things can feel fun and euphoric, but as you continue to drink more, the depressive symptoms start to occur, and that's when your brain and body start shutting down. So when your friend's kind of getting you to go along, I think you just need to be sure of who you are and kind of set your limits. And I think a lot of this happens in the beginning of the school, for freshmen in particular, when they don't really have a set group of friends. And I think people need to think about, if someone's really giving me a hard time after I say no, is this really my friend? How do I want to spend my time here, and is this who I want to spend it with? So I think just being assertive and being sure of who you are. And most students that I talk with who do say no, once they set the limit with their friends, I'm not drinking, or I really don't want to tonight, or whatever it may be, I'm cutting down, their friends don't give them a hard time because they are their friends.
It helps to, I think, have those kinds of conversations before you go out, as opposed to, when you're in Alston in a basement at a party. Being clear about what your values are with your friends, I think, is an important thing to do.
And this is a really hard school. I mean, I'm really impressed with the intensity of the academic requirements, and students come here to get an education, and it really is heartbreaking when you see someone who comes with the best intentions, and then because of peer pressure, or they're just, they're without a clue about how to handle alcohol, how to manage alcohol, they really see their GPA slipping, because you can't party all weekend and then expect to be in good shape for studying Sunday night and back in class on Monday.
We do have some data to support that students feel like their drinking does affect their academics in a negative way, particularly if they're regularly drinking.
Another question that came in is, how prevalent is the use of date rape drugs at parties around BU, and how can I prevent anyone from slipping something into my drink?
I just want to echo something that Liz said to me a while ago, which is alcohol is the most common date rape drug. So that male or female person at a party who's saying drink more, may actually be doing that to you without using some other kind of substance, because it's, alcohol is much more available than GHB or these other things that people use to try to sexually assault someone. So I just remember you having said that to me.
That's absolutely true, and I think in general, being aware of how much and how quickly you're drinking. So the basics that we talked about with alcohol, and then with other substances, not accepting a drink from someone you don't know, really trusting a person, knowing them well. If you are going to accept a drink, watch them pour the drink. Drinking out of bottles or cans that you open yourself obviously will limit that amount. Don't leave a drink unattended. Even if you go to the bathroom and you leave it outside, go and get a new drink. Don't go back to that one. So just basic things like that.
And to answer your question directly, I don't get the sense that they're especially common, but to echo the fact that alcohol is commonly used as a drug to get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do.
I saw a student recently, a freshman, who came in and said she had gotten so drunk, and she had drunk out of this big punch bowl, and she said, it's the last time I'm going to do that, because she had no idea what was in the punch. It's the opposite of having a can or a bottle that you open yourself. You know exactly what it is that you're getting.
Another question is, a friend of mine has been medically transported twice so far freshman year. how do I know if she has a drinking problem, and what, if anything, can I do to help her?
I would say 2 transports is really problematic, you know, and that would, to me, represent problematic drinking. And so that friend of this person, I think, should encourage her to seek evaluation, advice about, you know, how she's making decisions about her social life. You know, not that that necessarily means that she's an alcoholic, quote unquote, by standard definitions, but certainly is expressing, you know, somewhat poor judgment, and is perhaps putting herself in a situation or situations where she could be injured. So I think that's, as a friend, that would be a really important thing to. It's difficult to confront people about these sorts of things, but talking to them, you know, seeking advice from folks at Student Health Services. If the friend wanted, for example, to talk with Liz about how she might approach, he or she might approach their friend, that's something they can do. You know, I think RAs are a great resource in this regard. The chaplains at the Marsh Chapel, I think, are another group of folks who are very accessible and willing to give, you know, help to coach people through these kinds of difficult situations.
And I was just going to say, I also think being direct with a friend, saying, this is what I'm observing and I'm really worried about you. It frightens me that you've been transported twice. And I, you know, and also maybe not enabling her by not going out, or him, not going out and drinking with them, and just saying, I don't really want to do this with you because I am worried.
Let's find something else to do. But, you know, we think about the word confront because, and it feels like you're doing something kind of scary to go up to somebody and say that. But I think if you do it with that kind of concern and you say, I'm really concerned about you, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you, then people do respond. They realize that it's out of concern for their safety and health and well-being, and that you're not doing something mean. But what Dr. McBride said about, we use this harm reduction idea, that it's not that we don't expect people to not drink, it's that we want to make sure that they do it in a way that is not going to hurt them.
Well, and I think the other piece of that question is, I think college students have the right to live in an environment where they're not being impacted by other people's drinking. You know, I heard of a young woman who had a roommate who was coming home every weekend and, you know, intoxicated and vomiting, and you know, I think people generally have the right not to live in that kind of environment. And so I think, you know, on the flip side of confronting a friend, confronting someone who's sort of impacting your life based on their alcohol use is also, I think, something that people should feel empowered to do. Because that's, you know, while that's their decision, if it's impacting your life, it's like cigarette smoke, you know, get your cigarette away from me. I don't want to have to deal with that kind of thing. I want to focus on school and studying, or, you know, a healthy social life, so to speak.
And you can go to Res Life if somebody is, you know, really making it difficult for you to live in your room, and the bathroom is always, you know, with vomit in it. You can certainly go to Res Life, and they are very helpful in that. And they'll go approach the person, and they may call in Liz or one of us for extra help. So we all work together to make this a better environment for everybody.
And this kind of piggybacks on this discussion. If someone is interested in coming in for alcohol counseling, but they're under 21, they say, I'm kind of concerned about talking to you and getting in trouble. Sure. What kind of help is available for me, and will I get turned in, so to speak?
No, so Student Health Services, the counseling that we offer there through behavioral medicine, is confidential. So, you know, we keep things confidential. We're not going to share anything with the Dean of Students, Judicial Affairs, Residence Life, or anybody like that without their permission to do so, or parents. So really, the reason the service is there is to offer a confidential and supportive conversation and help someone come up with a plan about, you know, if they're interested in changing their use at all. So it's very open-ended and student-driven, so it really depends what the student wants. So I'm here to help them at whatever stage they're at.
Yeah, we always stress confidentiality, we stress accessibility, and it's free. That's the other thing we stress. But I also want to say that if we were worried about someone's life, then we do breach confidentiality, because that's the one place where their life is more important to us than keeping confidence, and they may be upset with us, but we will break confidence if we think that they are doing things that are endangering themselves or others. It doesn't happen very often.
In immediate danger.
In immediate danger, right.
And maybe this will be our last question here. We've got 5 minutes left. I've seen way too many guys try to take advantage of girls when they're drunk. How can I, as another guy at the party, do something without starting a fight?
Well, this is the concept of bystander intervention, and certainly the feeling of watching someone take advantage of someone is very uncomfortable, and I do think it's difficult to step into that situation. But I think there are some specific tips about how to do that. Liz, you might have some thoughts on that. Not being confrontive in a violent way, not using physical force to remove someone, recruiting your friends to, walk up to someone and say, look, should this be happening? Not in a way of calling someone out, so to speak, but really to try to provide protection for the person who's potentially being taken advantage of. Do you have other thoughts about that?
I think that in the same way, obviously, if a male is going up to a male, it may seem more threatening than if a female is going up to a male and intervening. So letting the female's friends that you're concerned about, letting their friends know what's going on and making sure that they go over and grab their friend away. Bystander intervention, it really is the sense of, having people look at behavior that they see disturbing and things that they notice in other people. So if they're at a party, what behaviors have they observed? And what it does is it takes it outside of saying you do this or you do that. It helps people look outside of themselves, and then they generally internalize what they learn about from looking at other people. So they realize, oh, well, actually, I do that sometimes too, and how can I be a better community member? So bystander intervention is really something that I would like to see BU move in a direction towards. So we're working on that, and we hope that will happen.
When along those lines, I think not putting yourself in a situation where a friend can't intervene. So going upstairs, for example, is the worst idea in the world. Staying with your friends, particularly if you've had too much to drink, is important. As Liz suggested, walking up to the male or female who you perceive as being taken advantage of and saying, is everything okay? Can I help you out? I think that might be some different ways to approach that sort of a situation, or keep yourself out of that kind of situation.
And hopefully the community will move towards a place where, it's just not acceptable, so that everybody is, aware of what's going on, and that kind of stuff is happening less. Because people aren't accepting it. People aren't just going to watch and ignore. Well,
I'm sorry to take too much time, but I think the follow-up conversation the next day is not as a guy saying, "Oh yeah, high five, I got this girl to do this or that." I think men, as the most common perpetrators of sexual violence, need to express to their friends that it's not acceptable. It's not like you're going to get a pat on the back if you get someone drunk and take advantage of them. That's just not acceptable behavior. So again, you've kind of conveyed that expectation before you put yourself in a situation of a party, so that you or your friends are less likely perhaps to think that that's okay, or something that they really want to do. So they'll have their buddies, like I said, slap them on the back the next day.
And just a couple minutes, if there's anything that you wanted to add, just as closing comments, go ahead. We've got a couple minutes left.
I just wanted to let people know that there is an alcohol task force at Boston University. Dr. McBride and myself chair it, and if anyone's interested in participating, we'd love to have more student membership. And it's comprised of folks from around campus, including researchers, including from the Dean of Students Office, Residence Life, Judicial Affairs, etc. And we really look at environmental strategies for decreasing binge drinking and the associated negative harms on campus. So we would love to have people join. So my email address is edouglas, edouglas @bu.edu, or you can call Student Health Services and just ask for me, and we'd love to have you. I can give you more information.
I want to thank BU today for the series and for the spotlight, because it's obviously a very important issue to all of us. We want to make BU the best campus it can be. There are a lot of people on campus who don't drink at all, and they have a voice as well. And for those who drink, we want to help them to do it safely and in moderation, and so there won't be negative consequences.
When also, I think, and the Dean of Students and the President of the University, President Brown, are doing a great job of this, 1BU concept, building a community, and I think conversations like these help people to realize how important being a community that looks out for one another is on a college campus. And, even though we're a campus in the middle of the city, we love this to grow more into a place where people really do look after one another, and so I think conversations around alcohol and drugs and sexual assault are great catalysts for moving that concept forward. So I think that we all hope that will continue to happen as well.
I want to thank each of you too for participating, and this is the end of our live chat. Thanks.